This is, believe it or not, just an informal paddle, but when we put the word out, look what happened. The reason for this gathering is to, we have a guest here from Peterborough, Ontario, James Raffan. That's him in the blue coat over there. And James is an executive member of the Canadian Canoe Museum. And he'd heard about Gibsons and the Sunshine Coast, and the fact that we call ourselves the ocean-going canoe capital of the West Coast. And I told him that per capita, we probably have more paddlers and more canoes than most, if not any, community in the country. And that everybody's involved, from the schools to the community itself, First Nations. We've got all kinds of cultures represented. And I said, if you're coming, we'll take you out for a paddle. If you're coming to meet council, then come on out for a paddle. Oh, that'd be good. So we put the word out. Would you like to come and show this guy the community spirit that is the canoeing culture of the Sunshine Coast? And look what we've got. And I'd like to thank Jeremy Verilette from the town council for being here, because, of course, being the politicians, he arranged this nice weather. Oh, I'm sorry, Wes takes some credit for that too. He did his anti-rain dance. This is not a race today. Where's Fred Stark? You told me it was a race, for God's sake. I got the best crew going.
Hey, Ed, that's what you always say.
And the idea, we're gonna be on the hour for probably an hour. If you want to stay out after, great. We're gonna go down to Soames Point and back. We want to pass through the Squamish Reserve area. Wes Nahaney is here, and he is steering the Sechelt canoe, right? So look at that. We got both First Nations represented here. We'll maybe stop on the way down there if Wes wants to stop and tell us about his territory or sing a song or whatever. So stay together, or you guarantee you your crew will miss something. So if your skipper's steering you away, ask him to bring you back into the group, okay?
Like Fred.
So just know that.
I feel like I've dived on canoe heaven. I do want to say thank you to Wes particularly, but to you all for a very memorable morning. Telephone conversations with Wendy led me to believe that we were going to maybe have a coffee this morning. And it was a very enjoyable but fulfilling and soul-enriching morning to see you doing what you're doing. I bring greetings from the Anishinaabe of Curved Lake and Hiawatha First Nations, where the Canoe Museum is situated. And what is the Canadian Canoe Museum? It is a collection. It's a small, not-for-profit organization made pretty much out of spit and binder twine, out of around a collection of canoes that was created by a mad collector some of you have met, a chap called Kirk Whipper. Kirk was born in the Interlake region of Manitoba in a little place called Grahamdale, and somewhere early in his life, he's been dead now for about 4 years. He died. He lived a long, full, productive life. But somewhere when he was very young, he got the notion that Canada is a nation of coasts and rivers, and ergo it's a nation of canoes. And I don't know if you collect anything. I collect wooden boxes. Maybe you collect something. But Kirk was fascinated with canoes because he thought they connected French, English, and Indigenous people in this nation of rivers. But it also connects the canoeist to the waterways and to the land and to the people. And he was given one canoe by a professor of his, a beautiful basswood dugout canoe made by the Payne brothers, who made canoes just north of Peterborough. One canoe that led to another and another, another. And next thing you know, one man had a collection of about 500 canoes, including some incredible craft from just about every corner of the country. A boat called the Bluebird, which came from Duncan, made by, I think, Simon Charlie.
A boat or a canoe?
A boat or a canoe.
It's never great to be kibitzed and cajoled that way. Guilty as charged, Your Honor. That was the beginning of the Canadian Canoe Museum in the mid-90s. And like a lot of museums, I think it was created on the model that when you're a museum, you create a glass case. And then beautiful, significant things come from far away into that glass case. And the responsibility of the museum is to love it, to look after it, to conserve it, to bring its stories to the fore. But what good is it to people in Gibsons Landing, BC, or Yellowknife, or Chicoutimi, or St. John's, Newfoundland, or Rigolet, Labrador, if you don't know it exists? The country has come to a place where I think what you know needs to be shared more broadly. What do you know? Well, as I look into Gibsons and get this amazing portrait of what went on this morning, you know that canoes connect people to each other, to the past. I mean, it's really weird. I was sitting there this morning. It brought me back this instant memory. I happened to be in the canoe that Canada sent to honor Queen Elizabeth on her 60th anniversary on the Thames a couple of years ago. And I had a guy who was 20 years old. Only trouble was he was born in a leap year. He was actually 80 years old, and he was hypothermic, having paddled for 7 hours in the rain. And we got to a crowd at the pullout at the Isle of Dogs, and the poor guy just about died in the canoe while we were being polite and waiting. But we were pulling together for Canada, and I felt that today. And I really felt that Gibsons has a sense of what this is about. So, the Canadian Canoe Museum is in the process of reinventing itself, trying to figure out how you connect people in a digital age, not only to that collection, but how do you get the incredible stuff that's going on in a place like Gibsons to be known by people who can't physically come here. And so I'm coming to talk to, I thought it was Wendy. It turns out it's a bigger crowd, and I'm so happy about that. Because as we roll up to the Canada's 150th birthday, the federal government is doing not very much at all to bring Canadians together around that birthday. But the group of us at the Canadian Canoe Museum are convinced that if we don't get reconciliation moved ahead by our 150th birthday, we shouldn't even, put a candle on the cake. I think you know some stuff that the rest of the country would benefit to know. So, to just give you an idea, the museum, it has core values. The collection's at the middle. It spells canoe. Isn't that catchy? A is Aboriginal. A quarter of the collection is of Aboriginal origin. N, it's got a national story. O, it needs to be an organization, and that's something we're rethinking. E, it needs to be experience. You can't really understand a canoe until you get in it. And pull together, as you know better than anybody. But we're a canoe museum that is actively looking at saying, how do you bring that into the nation? How do you bring that into the country? So we're thinking about stuff like, wouldn't the country be different if we had a canoe in every school? ACES, a canoe in every school. Wouldn't it be cool if on July 1st or maybe Labor Day 2017, when the country turns to 150, that we had 150 canoes on the water in every provincial and territorial capital, and maybe 1,500 canoes on the water at Victoria Island behind Parliament Hill in our nation's capital. We're thinking about something that has been with us all this time, and I think so many people have experienced that, but I think it's time to bring the canoe lessons forward because they contain the past, they inform the present, making a day like we had this morning. But I think they have lessons for the future about health. And that's physical health, but it's also spiritual health. It's cultural health. They have lessons about accepting difference and pulling together anyway, being in the same boat. I mean, the lessons go on and on and on. And the dream that I kind of bring on behalf of my colleagues at the Canadian Canoe Museum, so I talked about, the glass case. So So here's the traditional Victorian model. The glass case. Stuff comes from way out here on a line with a little arrow on the end into the case. What would happen if we were able to invite people to the Canadian Canoe Museum in Peterborough and have a black and gray television screen, and all that's on it is a live feed from the dock at Gibsons? Stuff's going on here. What would happen if, you know, through our collection, through working with you, builders here, collectors here, what would happen if, working perhaps with the museum here in Gibsons or somehow with the town, if somebody was to visit here, or some of you wanted to say, well, what's the context of an outrigger canoe set into the whole nation? Wouldn't it be very cool if you were able to walk to a similar big screen here and talk to somebody or visit the collection virtually? Because that infrastructure so instead of the case and the arrows, what would happen if we fattened up the arrows so we could actually talk to each other? Wouldn't that be novel? Yeah. The idea of museum, that we're actually trying to turn the whole thing upside down. So instead of the glass case, what we want to do is maybe take the glass off and start thinking instead about a hub with all these fantastic spokes and nodes around the country. Because canoeing is alive, and it's being recreated and reinvented, and permutations and combinations. Go to the dock in Algonquin Park at Canoe Lake and watch people in saris and traditional dress from Asia rent canoes and get in them to try to learn about this country. But look what we did this morning. And I'm just about overflowing with emotion. The possibilities, but the outpouring of goodwill and the love and the things that you have put into today. I mean, the fact that you've trashed your schedule for today to be here and is just on a little couple of phone calls or everything just humbles me tremendously. But I really do want to say that I really do hope that we can do something together, maybe in time for Canada 150, maybe something longer, or maybe tomorrow.
This town will show you the way.
Yeah.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. James, I have a print I want to give you. There's a certain protocol that goes around with these things. This is a print from Haida Gwaii. This is a print that was done by Chief James Hart, who's a hereditary print in Haida Gwaii. It was done for the villages of Masset and the village of Old Masset. So what do? I contacted them and got permission. But I'm in Squamish territory. So this morning I talked to Wes and got his agreement. And then I also talked to the elder from Sechelt and got his agreement. So this is the print. James Hart is actually the Chief Eatonshaw, the chief of the Eagle clan on Haida Gwaii. We just had a great art show of the Charles Eatonshaw. This is a descendant from Charles Eatonshaw, who's now chief on Haida Gwaii. I put information on the back of his collections, his National Gallery and things of that nature. The paddles represent the eagle, the raven, and the heron, which are all common birds to our west coast and common birds to Haida Gwaii. So this is something that, as I say, it was made for, designed for the village of Masset and the village of Old Masset. I've spent the last 4 years, and if anybody wants to visit Haida Gwaii, there's some huge canoe opportunities in Haida Gwaii, mostly in sheds or in the Kai Museum up there. You don't see them in the water unless there's major journeys. There's a different water up there, and so that you have to be really prepared to go out. But James, I'd like to present this for the gallery, for the museum, and thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for accepting this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
This morning when he asked me about it, I looked at it, and being the paddles on there, you have the two paddles from here, the two different nations that it may come from, comes from up there, but it was gifted down here. But to me, and this is only my interpretation of this picture, that paddle in the center has color to it, has vibrance. And that's what I believe we're looking for, is that vibrance of canoe culture, of bringing people together, bringing many different nations together. As you said, travel in the canoe. The canoe brings us many, many teachings. And this is the way I look at this, is that those two on the outside that didn't have much color to them for the last little while are being brought together from another adventure and being brought more life into it. And that's the way I look at that center paddle being so vibrant in color, that you're starting something else, another teaching of bringing people together as well. So I thank you, and I thank my brother Bill for bringing this together as well.
Canoes have been very, very important to the Sechelt people for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. I'm going to tell you about one episode. People used to, this is before white contact, and in those days. Other tribes that didn't have excellent canoe carvers would come and steal our canoes. Now, at one time, this is according to my grandfather, he was Chief Dan Paul, he used to be the Sechelt Rememberer, and he passed this to me, and he said that years and years and years ago, I don't know exactly the date, but we have a place called Deserted Bay, or Tsonai. Now, some of our best canoe builders came from around that area, and they had a lot of canoes there. And they said that one day all the men went off to do whatever men were doing, probably gone hunting or something, or some such thing, and the village was left with just the old-timers and the young people and babies and stuff like that, and the women. And while the men were gone, a band of Indians from another band, they say it was the Yuclatas. Now they say the Haidas used to be a very, very, very fierce race, but they say the Yuclatas didn't take a back seat to them. They were pretty fierce. And they came into Deserted Bay, and the men weren't there to defend it. So, of course, massacre happened, and all our people were dead. And when the men came back, they thought the village was deserted, and there was no one. And while they were looking around, there was lots of dead people. Now, I know you don't like to think about dead people and all that, but it's a part of our past. And while they were going around, everybody is really, really agitated because this is their families are laying there. And as they were looking about, they heard a noise, and it was a very feeble noise. And they started looking under bodies. And under this body of a woman, the last thing she'd done with her life was protect her baby. And it was a little girl. No one seems to know what the family name was. And they held a little war council there. And they took off down Jarvis Inlet, going after the people that done this. When they got to around Scotchford Point, that's just up beside the second ferry from Salfrey Bay, I guess. Yeah, Salfrey Bay. And when they got there, they were being careful to go out into the Gulf, they say. And they saw a bunch of canoes coming from Vancouver side, from that direction. And they thought, well, maybe it's the people that just finished wiping out our village. And so they waited. But it wasn't them. It was people, I think it came from the Musqueam. And it was Musqueam people. These invaders had been down there and also had done some of the same kind of mischief down there, stealing canoes and women and kids. And when they got up to our Scotchford, the Sechelt people joined with them. And they all, together with the Musqueam people, they followed on to find the people that had done this. Well, when they got to Cape Mudge area, there's a nice big flat place on the outside there, and they were camped there feeling pretty good. You know, they'd done all their damage, and they were going home with lots of canoes and lots of women and lots of kids, and they caught them there, and I guess justice was served. I don't know, that's not the part I'm telling you about. I'm just telling you about how important canoes were on this coast. That's what this is about. I just want you to know that I'm so proud to see you all out here today, and my relatives right there. My relatives.
First of all, I'd like to thank every one of you, each and every one of you. My heart goes out to all of you, brothers and sisters that got together today. All known to Wendy, Kopelic, Sarah. Sarah invited me here, and then Carrie invited me onto the school district canoe with Sarah, and I have a few friends here that I know, and I met a lot more friends today. And that's my first time in a long time on a canoe. And my brother Wes here, my neighbor, Olnomt, Hatui Mutlahoy, the Quail, the Quee, the Quail, this morning and this afternoon. And I want to thank you very much, and having us over here having coffee, donuts, and whatever. We were looking for clams and oysters, really. I'm from Alatonai, where my grandmother over here was talking about, and I'd like to add a little bit to that, because there was 7,000 strong in Tonai, Deserted Bay, years ago, before my time. And I used to travel up and down Jarvis Inlet with my grandfather in a dugout canoe, 30-foot cargo canoe they called it. And he had a cleat in the bottom. As soon as the wind comes up, paddles came in. From the story I heard, if you don't mind me adding to that, was Gastown. Some of our people a long time ago had landed in Gastown, and they watched the people there drinking the fire water, as they called it. And from that there, they went back out that way. More of our people went with them, and then they handed out these blankets. They didn't know there was smallpox in there, and killed everybody except this little girl. And right now today, I can't believe I went this far. Relatives that I didn't know that passed on there. And for them to do that, it's a crying shame. Now we're just building back up again. And It sure was nice to be out in the waters with you. Brother West. Olum Shalap. I said it's really good what you're all doing. I'd like to add to yours that we need youth. We have to teach the youth to go out in the canoes, like you say, all the sunshine goes with the schools. There'll be more than 150. When you start teaching the youth, there's going to be more and more all the time. Hold them. Have a great day.
Osea Hajka, Sia Hajka, Ele Lana, Sia Hajka, Upe, Sia Swika. Hajka Hachanek, Sia Hajka, Tamil, Hajka, Stal, Sia Hajka, Stalmo. Chi Oxton, Quim Sna, Sko Omish Stalmo. Chi Oxton. My name is Chi Oxton. Yes, I know I told you Wes, but that's my driver's license name. My true name is Chi Oxton. Translated, the one that looks after the laws and the protocols of my family. We have connections throughout the lands up and down this coast through the canoes. The Yakuta that she talks of, that territory up there where they were found. Saqualutan is the name of that area right there. Saqualutan. And a little secret that I'll share with you. If you ever go to that lodge, they'll tell you it's the gathering place. Translated, it's actually the place of great massacre. The Yakuta were the last ones that we warred with. There's a place just down around the corner that you know is Potlatch Creek. That is where all the chiefs came together. Kishat. The many different villages that we now today know as Ka'omish. Back before 1923, they had individual names. But then we came together. It wasn't until contact that we started saying, that's Sechelt territory, that's Squamish territory, that's Musqueam. And it wasn't until contact when they started putting those divisions in between us that things started to go awry. But I thank the Creator today for people like yourselves and families like ours that can put those behind us, that can leave them in the waves of the canoe behind us, because we know we need to pull our canoes forward in a good way. And it's journeys like this where we can do it. I made a new friend today. I will remember this day and I will speak about it. Not only on the floors of our longhouse, but also on Facebook. I will share the stories of people coming together in Chomo, one heart and one mind. For this is what we've done. We have stories going back to the Ice Age in this territory, of the Great Flood, when the canoes tied around the tops of the mountains. what you know today as Mount Garibaldi. If any of you are hikers and have been up on top of Mount Garibaldi, you'll see remnants of the old cedar rope that was tied around the top. And when the people started tying their canoes to that cedar rope. Many people up and down this coast are connected through those days. We're becoming one again. We're becoming stomach again. And when I say stomach, I mean human being. I grew up in an age where there was a lot of strife in amongst the different peoples. I grew up thinking the word Juanitum meant white person. I had that instilled in me, but luckily through the canoe I was able to push that away. I was able to get to know people and appreciate them as human beings. In my language, stomach is human beings, which we all are. In my language, Juanitum is not white person, but the hungry ones. Because when we first made contact, they were hungry. They did not know the land. They did not know how to hunt it. They did not know what to do when they got here. You see many different figures throughout Vancouver area, up the coast, with their hands like this. In Chukmo, Kayachtin. I raise my hands to you and I welcome you. This is our way of saying welcome. And that's how our people were. We brought in the hungry ones. And luckily today there are many more hungry people. Not hungry for the belly, but hungry for the soul, for the spirit. And it's through the canoes that we've brought many, many people together and share that time together. So, Osiyam and Siyam, I acknowledge the good spirit within each and every one of you. And I always like to share with our people when we raise our hands. This is only my family, but we raise our hands because otherwise we're saying, I caught a fish that day, or I give up. But with other First Nations, some of them do this because they want to share that good energy. I come from a culture where I need to keep that away from other people, so I keep it to myself. Other First Nations, they do catch fish that way. But we catch bigger fish. So I thank each and every one of you for being here today. My first day out in the canoe this season. I'm good to go for another day.
Thank you, Wes.
See you all out on the water.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.